Hello from Southern Ontario, December 12th here in Canada. So when I went into town today to fuel up my car, because it's down to $1.33, woohoo, I noticed that the Esso gas station, they didn't list the alcohol content, ethanol, they call it. It's ethanol, alcohol. They didn't list it on the pump. I thought they had to by law in Canada. So I went in and I spoke to the station owner about it, but I'll come to that. So anyways, I came home and I started Googling because, again, I thought they had to list it at the pump. I'll come to later in the video why knowing the content is important. It's bad stuff. But anyways, like everything now, you go to the Canadian government websites and the disparity is just, you can't find anything conclusive. But I gather by law, Canadian law, it has to be fuel 10% ethanol alcohol on average across their fuel blends. You see the octane rating 87, 89, 91, sometimes 94. I should say octane rating really isn't of importance in today's modern vehicles with all their fuel injection and ECUs, electronic control units, computer programs, etc. Except for rare circumstances, pulling heavy loads and stuff. This doesn't take into account our older vehicles. You know what I mean? Antique vehicles, let's say. Just, older vehicles. And so then I go to, okay, let's go to the fuel companies. What do they have to say? Well, Shell and Esso, they have 91, and I think Shell is 94 octane. One site says it's ethanol free, and other says no. Here's part of the equation. Ethanol alcohol is 100 octane, and when mixed with fuel, gasoline, it becomes 112 octane. So it's a very cheap way for the fuel suppliers to up the octane. Okay, we have a dichotomy here, right? We think there's less or no alcohol in the higher octane blends, but they're motivated. I mean, ethanol is a whole lot cheaper to make than gasoline. I'll come back to that in the proprietor of the gas station in a moment. Now, if you look at all your small engines, two strokes, chainsaws, let's say, weed eaters, things like this, the manufacturer suggests premium, and they don't say why, but it's because alcohol is no good. So now we'll get into what ethanol alcohol is and does. It's usually made from corn. It's very cheap to make. What's it cost to run a still, to heat some corn mash and make some alcohol, especially when it's the kind you don't drink. You don't drink ethanol alcohol. So it's just cheaper than gasoline to produce. Three big problems actually, with ethanol alcohol in our gasoline. The first one is it's considered what mechanics call dry. It does not mix well with petroleum lubricants. It's harmful to your engine, especially in the two-stroke applications. This is why your chainsaw manufacturer says use a premium blend. They don't want alcohol in there because it bollockses up that oil-fuel lubricant mixture. Alcohol further is a corrosive. It destroys carburetor parts and related components within the fuel system. Worse yet, especially in a cold climate as we have here in Canada, ethanol alcohol is very, very hygroscopic. It just wants to suck up moisture. If you're driving every day, commuting, and constantly topping up your tank in the winter, yeah, it's not such a problem really, right? It gets burnt. Side note before I forget, ethanol alcohol contains 70% of the energy of gasoline. So if 10% of your gasoline is ethanol alcohol, that 10% only makes 70% as much power, so you're getting less fuel mileage for your money, less bang for the buck. But let's go back to this whole hydroscopic thing. As a career mechanic, I mean, I've seen carburetors destroyed by being stored with ethanol. Alcohol blends the fuel sitting in the carburetor. It eats it. It destroys it. You cannot salvage that carburetor. Any older mechanic will tell you the same thing. Alcohol does not belong in our fuel. Even under the best of circumstances, your daily driver is not. It's reducing its life expectancy in a number of fashions for having the ethanol alcohol in the fuel. Even if it's being burnt and passed through your engine before there's a serious hydroscopic degree of issue. Again, the dry, non-lubricant factor and the fact that it's a corrosive. So, I mean, it just doesn't belong in our fuel at all. So now I come to the gas station owner. I said, I thought that had to be listed on the pump, like I'm not faulting you, my friend, but, he didn't even know what ethanol alcohol was. He kind of, I mentioned corn and he's going, oh, biodiesel. And I'm going, no, let's not go into the diesel. That's a whole different subject matter. He was like, really, alcohol? Well, alcohol costs more than gasoline. I was like, well, the reason a gallon of vodka costs so much money is tax. It's not, boiling up a few potato peels doesn't take much energy. He was like, I had no idea, right? So he Googles something up from Esso, because it's an Esso gas station. And all it said was, the fuel contains ethanol alcohol. I said, does it list a percentage for the, the 87, 91 octane stuff? He's like, no, it just says there's some ethanol alcohol in there. He was like, really? He had no idea about it at all, right? He was like, you can't drink this stuff? I was like, no, you don't want to drink ethanol alcohol. He was like, ethanol is alcohol. I'm like, that's what it is. Yeah, okay. He was taken quite aback. He had no idea what it was all about at all, right? Again, it's not his fault. But I guess I'll have to watch when I go to, next time I'll go to a Shell station or something, or a Petro can. And I'll see whether they list the percentage or not. But it is Canadian law. It has to be 10% across their blends on average. And, this gentleman who owned the gas station, he was going, well, they're telling us it's better for the climate crisis. Like, he's not stupid, right? I'm like, yeah, well, if it makes 70% less power and degrades the life expectancy of your vehicle, how green are we with all of this, right? So, just another ramble, no definitive answers. I know what's going on in the world, this is of small consequence, but should your vehicle sit, you want to minimize the alcohol content in it, because I meant to mention this already. When that ethanol alcohol hydroscopes and takes in the water, it turns into something that not only destroys your carburetor and related fuel system componentry, it also becomes something that isn't gasoline, it isn't alcohol, and it isn't water. You watch the videos about what happens to this stuff. I mean, it just, give me some good old-fashioned lead to compare to what that stuff turns into. And as I was Googling this, you can go to Canadian Tire, your small engine store or something, your repair shop. You can buy a liter of fuel that has no alcohol in it, um, be it straight fuel or a mixed oil with gas for your two-stroke, let's say your chainsaw, and you can leave it at your cottage and it won't hydroscope and turn into something that makes you grow 6 eyeballs, not just 3. It's like 13, 14, 15, 21 bucks a liter, but you can get it. And when they first started this years ago, when I still had my shop, people would say, well, I put in fuel stabilizer when I park my vintage car, my motorcycle for the winter or whatever. And I would say, well, how can you add one chemical to this complex blend of chemicals? Because we took lead out and put in who knows what. That stuff makes you grow 18 eyeballs, and expect it to stabilize. Well, the theory is it lies on top of the fuel and prevents the atmosphere from getting to the fuel. So, just to save a comment, what do I think about fuel stabilizers? Well, I'm pretty dubious. And again, the alcohol blend, the ethanol, it's picking up moisture from when it left the refinery. It's picking it up in the tanker truck it's delivered in. It's picking it up in the underground storage. It's picking it up as you pump it into your vehicle. It's picking it up while it's in your vehicle. And if you think you're going to pour a fuel stabilizer that lies on top and prevents the atmosphere and hence the moisture from getting to your fuel, I'd say, well, there's enough in there already to turn that alcohol fuel, gasoline fuel blend into mush. So, another one of my rambles.